Right, hello and welcome to another video. Today we're going to go in depth on how steam and diesel locomotives work internally and externally. So I hope you enjoy. So before we start, I'd like to introduce today's candidates. So today we have SDJR 7F number 13809 from the Midland Railway. We have GER number 564 preserved at North Norfolk, and that's preserved at the Midland Railway Centre in Butterley. We have 70,000 Britannia, which is preserved by LSL and runs on the Mainline. And we have D6732 representing our diesels for today, which is preserved in North Norfolk. And before you do ask, yes, all of these have been to North Norfolk, hence why I picked them. Anyways, so we come to 809 for the first type of external motion, which is only external gear, meaning it's all outside wall shafts, which is the person who designed the valve gear. So you have two rather large cylinders, one on this side and one on this side, and obviously they are timed to work properly, so they're offset by 90 degrees each side. Then we move over to 564, which is internal and external. So we have internal valve gear inside, and we have an external rod here keeping all the wheels in time. Now, unfortunately I don't have a 3-cylinder locomotive, but this one is the closest I can get. So essentially it's these two combined, so it will be inside and outside, but this one has outside wall shafts, so the third cylinder is usually in the middle. However, with 564 you have two there because they're not on the outside. I hope that makes sense. But with D6732 obviously you have an engine inside, which is a V12. I cannot tell you how many litres it is, all I can tell you is that it's very big. Right, let's move on to the cabs of each locomotive, starting with 809. So 809 is a standard cab, how you would expect to see a cab. So you have your vacuum brake on the left, which brakes the whole train, not just the locomotive. You have your reverser, your cylinder cocks used to drain the cylinders. You have your regulator, your water glasses, pressure gauges, steam injectors, water injectors there and there. Your firebox, which I can open up, but I can't because I'm in the way at the minute. There's a door behind me, so. And you've got your small and your large ejector. If we move forward, I will show you the tender. There's also oiling pots and your sand filler caps. If we move forward and turn around, we have the tender. So this tender is where all your coal and water is stored in this sort of locomotive. So you have about 8 tons of coal in there alone, plus the 3,000 or so gallons of water. Obviously you've got your fireman's shovel and your water injectors for the tender. How that works is, oh, we're going to have this problem again, are we? So if you wanted to service the locomotive, you'd have to set that to shut, so the water wouldn't come through the tender, or you'd just have to empty the tender, which is pretty simple. For now, we will not move her, but I will give you the whistle. And you will notice they do differ, because they are different companies. But that was just simple there and there of 7F, so we'll now move to 564. Now, I am currently hanging out the driver's window because this cab is quite compact compared to the 7Fs. So we have the same controls, so you've got your reverser on this side, your regulator in the middle, steam injectors, your firebox, your tender, which is significantly less than the 7Fs. But this one was made a lot earlier than her, so she's made mostly of wood in the cab. If we shift over, obviously you've got your windows, which the 7F did have, but I didn't open them. You've got your steam brake here, and your vacuum brake there. Let me find the whistle, there's the whistle for you. Not the best, but that's what we get in trains, unfortunately. Obviously you've got your cylinder cocks, oh sorry, your front sanders are there, and then your rear sanders, that's your cylinder cock. Confusing cab, I apologise. And you've got your handbrake, coal, and your water's in there, and you've got your fireman's tools over there, which consist of a rake, a sort of axe-shaped thing, and a couple shovels, so you can clean out pretty easy. Right, well we shall move on to Britannia. Now, apologies for the safety as you will hear in the video, but this is Britannia's cab, which is a far contrast from what we had in those two. This one was built in the 60s, so we'll be a bit more modern. You've got your regulator here, which is external this time, so I'll take the RC off again. Got your small and large ejector. Your reverser is now wheel, but forward facing. Some of the cocks there, sand is to blow up, which is forcing a jet of steam through the smoke box to gain more pressure quicker. Got your firebox here, which is a bit low quality because this model is very old. Your water injector there and there, your steam injector there and there, and the pressure gauge obviously. And then we'll move to 3.2 and then we'll come back and I'll do a little more in depth on how these work. So we now arrive to the 70s, 80s where these locomotives were built. These are a lot different to what we had before. So now you have vacuum brakes, which brake the whole train, and a loco brake, which brakes just the locomotive, so when you're shunting it makes it a lot easier. You now have your reverser here, which is on a key and moves forward and backwards. This is your throttle, your brake pressure gauge, I believe that's your bogie pressure gauge, your brake gauge, vacuum brakes, your amps, and your miles an hour. Then you've got your sander here on a button, your engine stop and start, AWS reset, your headlight, and obviously the big window in front of you. It's a lot more confusing back here because there is a lot of room for a V12 in there. But unfortunately it's not modelled in this, so I can't show you, but I will pull up a couple pictures on screen if I do find them. I think that leads us back to the 7F, to me, to explain how the steam injectors and other things work. You join me back in the 7S cab now, and we'll go through some quick demonstrations on how she works. So, if I move myself to the middle, and we'll go back a bit, we've got the whole cab here. So, we'll teach you injectors first. So, if we apply the water injector, that pours water from the tender into the pipes down below. If I go out here, you can just see there's loads of pipes under there, which is the injector system. So that water is now trickling through there and out of the pipe. Now if we chuck the steam injector on the driver's side, you can hear the injectors have picked up, which means the water is now being forced from the tender through the pipes into the boiler to keep the water up in the boiler. Now we already are at a full boiler, so we'll close that. Your firebox is fairly simple. You will get a shovel full of coal from back here, swing round and throw it into the corners at the front, back, the two fronts and two backs, and in the middle, keeping sure to cover the grate over, because if not you'll melt the fire bars and you don't want that. And you've got your firebox grate flap, which prevents the heat from getting out and allows you to tip your shovel forward so you can get right to the front of the firebox. And you have your dampers, which is here. Your dampers are underneath in the ash pan of the firebox, so when you're going along it allows air to be drawn through the back and keep the fire alive. Your water glasses are here, so if I drain it, which I should be able to do with that, and then let it back, that just ensures there are no bubbles in the system. Now the blower is like how I demonstrated on Britannia. Push it up, jet of steam comes through the front there, and we'll fill your boiler up. Just make sure I have turned that off. It's still on somehow. There we go. Right, apologies. Your reverser is basically your gear stick in the car. So if I press E, that makes that handle drop down, which unlocks it. Push it forward to go forward, and reverse to go in reverse, which is pretty self-explanatory there. Your vacuum brakes work on a pressure system, so if I scoot myself back over here, if I chuck the small ejector on, just shut the firebox door in a minute, keep the heat in, and the large ejector, set the brakes to off, you should be able to look and you can see the pressure gauge goes up to 21, which is the maximum in your gauge. So I can now disengage the large ejector, apologies, and we'll now put it in forwards. We'll go about 60. We'll put the cylinder cocks on, which has just moved that, and we shall give it a bit of regulator to show you how she moves forward. So, do a bit of explanation here as we're moving along. Make sure the points are set quickly before we do move on. Right, so we'll go for a little run up the line. It's not complete yet, so there won't be much scenery, unfortunately. So, we'll give that a little toot. So, when you open the regulator, a tap opens in the dome, which allows steam to flow through into the cylinders from the smoke box, cooling what we use a blast pipe, or what we call a blast pipe, sorry. So, we'll just say goodbye to 564 and Britannia for now. The more you go up on the regulator, the more steam will be forced into the blast pipe. Now if we take the cylinder cocks off and we wind the reverser back in, we can put the reverser up and then back down. And you can hear the bark get louder. It was what we call a bark, or a chuff, depending on how you want to say it. So depending on how much throttle you give, it will get quieter or louder. So if I say I put it there, if you listen to the bark for a minute, and if I wide it, you can tell it gets a little louder pretty quickly. Now if we scoot ourselves back in, and then we go 3 cam, you can see all the valve gears turning and keeping every valve in time. If this didn't happen, then the steam engine wouldn't really work. Because yes, it can run off one cylinder, but it would struggle quite a bit. Now, this locomotive specifically was built for heavy freight on the S&D, which was 1 in 64 gradients, and they are not small. Like, they are pretty tall to overcome, especially for a loco this size. This locomotive specifically, 809, was built as a large boiler variant, so the boiler was a lot bigger than what it is now. I'll get a picture on screen. Yeah, pretty ugly, am I right? So, we're going back here. Everything seems to be fine. But yeah, and unfortunately she happened to be involved in an accident in a tunnel, and her driving fireman passed out, and she did end up crashing into the back of another train on the S&D. However, as you can tell, she is still alive and kicking. Well, not anymore. She is unfortunately out of a ticket. So she won't be running for about 10 years, because that is how long an overhaul takes. And the overhaul involves taking the boiler off, inspecting the whole thing and retubing it if need be, meaning replacing all the little tubes inside the boiler, and I'll show you a picture of the tubes in the boiler. There's a lot of them, because the heat has to go from the firebox through the tubes and into the smoke box. Now, we'll do a little explanation on this. You've probably learnt it in science, but oh well, we'll tell you anyway. So, obviously you have your coal heated in the firebox here. Your coal will go, your heat from the coal will go up and through the tubes once the regulator is opened, as it causes a draft in the front, pulling it through. And then the water in the boiler barrel will heat up from the water in the tubes, and then the steam will be created and sent into the smoke box, which is at the very front, which is this long portion here. Sorry for the game lagging there, it's just detailing. And then your exhaust, when you open the regulator, will go out of the top, and the rest of it will go through the cylinders. Pretty basic, but should help explain the steam engines a bit. So, if there is any questions, I hope I can answer them on the PowerPoint that I will make, and I'll link it in the description of this video if you want to have a look. But that is pretty much the ins and outs of how a steam engine works, in simple terms. So, if there's any questions, ask me down in the comments, or look at the PowerPoint. If any of those don't answer, then I don't know how to help you. Maybe do some Googling or something. But it's not easy to maintain. You've got to keep a steady head of steam in the front of the smoke box, and obviously keep your water and fire up. In the game, it's a lot easier, because you will just do what is told, sort of thing. So you'll press the fireman's button. If I do it now, actually, firebox will close. You do that, and this is a special feature on this locomotive specifically. Very advanced. Same with the walking feature that I've been using. But that is how that works. So yeah, that is pretty much the short explanation I can provide with the steam engine. So I'll transport you back in time now to me 3.2 and explain to you how those work. Right, you join me back in 3.2's cab. So I've already put ourselves in front of the stock, so we can have a bit more of an experience of what's going on. Now, to start, what you will do to set up your locomotive is you will turn your master key and you'll put your engine in engine only. This is for startup procedure. Then you will press your engine start and it will start. Simple. You turn your AWS selection on, which I already have. You make sure your gauge is set to air pass. Then you will set up your lights, which I've already done, so your tail lights and your route indicators, your instrument lights, which I've done here. You have an instrument light dimmer there, your AWS reset is there, and that's your sunflower, which is the indicator for that. You have your window wipers here, they do work. Obviously your loco brake is here, that's fully applied, sorry, that's released. My loco brake, oh sorry, my train brake is already released. Open my window. So now, all we have to do is put it in forward and then throttle up. You can see my amps going up there, and we're obviously moving. But before we do fully set off, we'll just set my brakes on a minute, because I do want to show you something. Now this is the -1 or -0 type of 37. So you have something called split boxes, which are these two on the front. Now, back in the day, to tell a train's location, or what it is, or where it's going, you would have these. So, for example, if I put it to 2, and then we'll go to C, so bear with me. Or to 2A actually, because it's closer. So that would be your route identifier and your locomotive service number. And if we do, bear with, 5, so if we do 1, sorry, if we do, I'm screwing this up really badly now. If we do 01, that would indicate to the signalman that this is the first service of the day, which it is in this case. So on the front, it's a bit confusing, but you have your air hoses there and there. You have your screw link coupler, which if I go back here, should be coupled to the coaches, of which it is. You can see it there. It doesn't actually work, unfortunately, like animation wise. So you've got your air there and there and there as well, and you've got your air hose connectors, which are for adapting this to a modern one, say -4. They went all the way up to -9. Then you have your vacuum brake, which is similar to the ones on 809. So, and that's pretty much the long and short of it. Obviously you got your handbrake there and your doors are there. Keep all enclosed. So now if we go outside, you've got your cooling fan and your exhaust. Now the exhaust do give out a pretty sweet sound if I do wide it, so I will do that. Also the term wide it means put it in full throttle. And then thrash is just the clag coming out of the top. So, also would like to mention, 2 grills on the front, 2-tone horn. Now if I go in the cab, it is right in front of me. Now, any diesel can have these anywhere. For example, the 37s had them in the nose, on the nose, and on the cab. The 31s had them on the cab and in the nose. The Class 50s had them in the nose only, because the whole front is the nose. And the 08s had whistles, so a bit different. But I'll set up another scenario after this to show you little industrial locomotives that we like, and then some bigger express locomotives. But for now, let me just let you listen to this. Now, the only downside to the -0s is that you will blow up the engine if you do give it too much. So you have to sort of ease it in. Whereas a -4, you could just put it in full and it would quite happily sit at it and just do it. Because on the -0s is still an earlier advancement of the 37s, So the traction motors, which are beneath me on the bogies, there's one on each wheel. I don't know if they're modelled in the game, but they should be there in real life. They're two massive circles. So there's just two massive, or there's like a massive motor in there. So the amps produced by the engine will go to those and drive it forward or backwards depending on which way you're going. Obviously pretty simple still. So now that we're at a decent speed, she should be able to take full throttle no problem. There you go. And as far as the diesel section goes, that is pretty much the long and short of it. Obviously the engine's a lot bigger than you probably would expect in like a Lamborghini, let's say, because they use V12s. So, a lot bigger, a lot beefier, cylinders are massive compared to a Lamborghini as well. But, yeah, that's pretty much the diesel side of it. I'll get some pictures of the engine bay for you, and some other various bits and bobs that I've mentioned before. But minus that, I'll set up another scenario with some industrials and bigger express locomotives and show you what they are. So thank you for joining me for the working section, let's say. Now we'll just move on to variations and types. So, welcome back. I have now selected a few industrial locomotives. The one on the far right isn't quite an industrial, but I went with it anyway because it's kind of cool. So, we'll start from the far left. I've tried to go with liveries and locomotives as well. So, we have the Midland Railway Kirtley in Works Grey, which was built in the 1800s, and unfortunately there are none left anymore. It's a really nice locomotive, also done by Fourth Games, who's the person who did the 7F. So, same features, the coal shoveling and the walking around the cab, with a load of other features. She is very light on her feet, which in railway terms means she's very light and will wheel slip if given enough regulator. Here we have the most common site on heritage railways, which is a J94, or known to us as a bucket, because they are really common. There are nearly over 100 of these in preservation, just because they were so cheap and there were so many of them at the time. This one was made by Steam Devs, I believe, and there are new versions of the bucket coming out, but they aren't just as good as this one. This one's a classic at the minute. Then we move on to the two more obscure locos. We have a traction engine thing, which I'm actually not sure of the name, but this has been customised to be one of my locomotives for this railway, as it is really cute and I do love it to bits. It's awesome. This was made by Wayside Works, who is a freeware developer for Train Simulator and makes some really good models. This and this one specifically. Now this is an LSWR rebuilt Ilfracombe goods, I believe. Now this one is quite girthier compared to the other ones, minus the bucket. The bucket is quite girthy, but overall the model's really nice. The textures are done well, minus the cab. It's a bit shiny, but that's neither here nor there. Now these are sort of the more common things you'll come across in Train Simulator as industrials, but there are more mainline locomotives that will come under popular and very well used, and I shall pull 4 of those up now. You now join me back at the yard after the industrial section to find 4 mainline locomotives. These are all built under LNER, so they are all the same region, which it may look unbelievable if I'm honest, but we'll go from left to right. So this is 60163 Tornado. Now, despite her look, she was actually built 20 years ago. That's really weird to think about, but she is the newest new build in preservation, built with Thompson's original designs. So this is this is Peppercorn. This is a Peppercorn A1. Very popular nowadays after her fame of being the newest steam engine built. Over to our right we have 6007 Sir Nigel Gresley, which is an LNER A4 built by Sir Nigel Gresley himself. So this is also another very popular locomotive. Same with Mallard, but these locomotives are known for their sleek looks for a start. So we'll move on from her. Next up we have 61306 Mayflower. This is now Thompson. This is a Thompson B1 design. I really like this one. It's a really nice model, as these two have not had a remodel. I believe that one is actually pushing 15 years old now. But yeah, Mayflower's made by Caledonia Works. These two are made by RSC. So these two are Caledonia Works designs. And then the most famous of them all, 60103 Flying Scotsman. Built in 1923, she has been across the globe. She's been to Australia and America, been all over America and Australia, and she's come home in one piece. Unfortunately, lots of people don't like her, but at the same time, loads of people do like her. I'm the person who likes her. So, yeah, that's your 4 mainline locomotives that are quite common to find nowadays in real life and in Train Simulator. So, I think that's where we can call the video, if I'm honest. I don't think there's much more to explain. So, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.